The Plagiarism Instinct Part 2. After having made the episode previous to this one, the Plagiarism Instinct, it occurred to me that that episode begged for another episode to be made, and this one is that one. So that other one becomes part 1 now. Right. Now, in that one, I chatted about Martin Luther King, plagiarist. I don't know how bad a plagiarist he was. You can work that one out yourself, as if you care. But then I started to think, because this often happens when you think of one example of something, anything, you extrapolate, expand, and all that sort of stuff. And then I started to think, to what extent are most of us plagiarists? And an awful lot of the time, And I think the answer is to a large extent, and not necessarily in the public domain, although often in the public domain. On social media, for example, people giving their opinions and views and all that sort of thing, and pretty much never quoting their sources, where they got those ideas. So, yeah, all right, in the public domain, people say, I think this. I think racism is bad. But they don't quote their sources. And by not quoting their sources, they're almost giving the impression that even if no one had taught them that racism is bad, they would have come up with that all by themselves as an original idea, when almost certainly they wouldn't have. And that applies to me too. Other people, someone might say on social media, or to him or herself, you can be a plagiarist to yourself. You can be self-deceiving. I might say, I believe that all men are equal, and all women too, and all other people too. I might say that, I might say I've been thinking about equality, egalitarianism and all that sort of stuff, and individual rights and human rights and all that sort of thing for a good 20 years. I've done a lot of soul searching, and I've come up with the idea that feminism is a good thing. And but then I might get onto social media, if I was on social media, and say, it's ridiculous if you don't believe in feminism. I might just say that. I'm a feminist. Now, in doing that, now you don't expect everyone to quote their sources on every comment they make. It's inferred, that geniuses have come before us. We do know that. So I'm sort of saying almost, do we lie to ourselves more when we tell ourselves that we've been on a journey in our lives and come up with a belief structure for ourselves, and that we've come up with that independently, that all the ideas about the world and who's got what rights and all that sort of stuff, and what's right and wrong, and what's justice and what's injustice and all that sort of thing, and whether civil rights are a good thing, for African Americans in Africa, in America, or whether Indigenous rights are a good thing in Australia, and that's we might start to think to ourselves, that's self-evidently, obviously true. Like, for example, do you consider Indigenous Australians to be human in the same way that you're human? Now, I know that sounds inflammatory, but it's not. If you hear the rest of this. Now, because I ask the same question of an Indigenous person, do you believe that Europeans are humans in the same way that you are human, or are they some sort of other species? Now, if the answer to that is, obviously, and, I would have come to that conclusion no matter what time I had been born in, what era, You know, and I would have been against racism too had I been born in, Captain Cook's era, for example. I would have been against racism, and if I had have been on the First Fleet, I would have been kind to Indigenous people. And all those sorts of things. That I'm asking that question of a European, of course. And if I had have been around, at the start of Australia in 1901, I would have said that the White Australia policy is a bad idea. And I would definitely have thought of that, because I've done a lot of soul searching in the last 10 years here in the 21st century, and and it's just so self-evidently true. That level of thinking, just fairness, that level of fairness for all, comes from within me. This is just an instinct I've got. It's something that comes from within. It's not something I've been taught. I came up with those ideas. To all of that, I would be saying, I reckon you're being a bit of a Martin Luther King, and deceiving yourself in thinking that you've come up with all those ideas. Because Martin Luther King came up with all his ideas of civil rights and all that sort of thing. I don't know that he acknowledged his sources, but that seemed all those ideas of civil rights that he had in his